Hello, I'm Esther from Barista, and this week we're going to be doing a video on how fresh is too fresh when it comes to roasted coffee. We love eating fresh and healthy food. We also love the smell of freshly roasted coffee. But did you know that if you drink coffee straight out of the roaster, when it's the most fresh, you're not actually able to get the optimum flavor out of your coffee? So today in the video, we're going to debunk some myths around freshly roasted coffee and go through at what point does coffee actually start to stale, and give you some tips on how long you should let your coffee rest before you consume it. So what is the perfect roast date for coffee? To begin, we need to understand what happens to coffee after it's been roasted. First of all, it begins to degas and releases a lot of carbon dioxide. Then, after a few days, the coffee begins to oxidate and stale. This is done by oxidizing the enzymatic aromas. The biggest threat to freshness of coffee is heat, oxygen, moisture, and sunlight. So by keeping your coffee in these bags resealed or in another tub that you can seal and keep out of the sunlight in a cupboard will keep your coffee fresher for longer. We also have our coffee coming in these tubs which can be nitrogen sealed, and by nitrogen sealing the coffee, it removes any oxygen from within the tin as well and will keep it fresh for as long as possible. For a long time, people thought that they should store their coffee in the fridge to keep it fresher for longer. I'm here to tell you, please do not do this. If you put your coffee in the fridge, coffee is extremely porous, and so it takes on the smell from the things that are around it. So if you kept it next to your blue cheese at Christmas, your coffee is also going to taste like blue cheese. The fridge is also it's cold, but it's got moisture in the fridge from the cold atmosphere, and so it will actually start to absorb the moisture from your fridge as well and oxidate a lot quicker and taste pretty disgusting. So keep your coffee far from the fridge in a cool, dry place. There's a big trend in people online talking about storing coffee in the freezer to keep it fresh. This is absolutely something you can do as long as it's vacuum sealed, or you store it in individual 18-gram pouches or single serve size pouches. When you do go to use it though, make sure it's fully defrosted before you brew with it. And also the reason this coolness works whereas the fridge doesn't is because the freezer is cool and dry. Your coffee is not going to absorb any moisture whilst it's in the freezer as long as it's sealed correctly. So how long should you keep your coffee after roasting it before you can brew it? Well, the truth is it's a bit more complicated than just one size fits all for the amount of days you should wait after roasting. The roast level will affect how quickly the coffee is going to degas. If you have a really, really dark roast, then because the bean has been damaged and destroyed so much through the roasting process, it will be extremely porous, which is why it's extremely easy to extract when you're brewing it, but it also means that it will degas very quickly. And then because of the dark flavor, it doesn't stale so much because most of the aroma, the volatile aroma that gives us the flavor, has been lost in the roasting process, so it will taste consistent for a long period of time. These roasts you could use for 3 to 4 months after roasting and it will still taste pretty good. So for a light roast, it's the opposite. When it's roasted, there's not as much energy used and the bean is not broken down as much. So it's still extremely dense and hard and not really very porous at all. So for the carbon dioxide to escape that bean, it takes a lot longer. So it actually takes up to 2 weeks to degas completely. For a medium roast, it's somewhere in between like 4 to 7 days will give you optimum freshness, as you've broke down the bean a little bit more than a light roast, so the carbon dioxide can escape more quickly. So when it comes to staling, for light and medium roasts, they actually stale a lot quicker than the dark roasts, and this is because the aroma that we get from the coffee, which makes it smell so delicious and therefore enhances the flavor, are very, very volatile enzymatic compounds, and so they're the first thing that we lose when it gets oxidated. So because the bean is so dense, it takes a long time to degas, as we've said, but then it stales very quickly. So within a couple of weeks, we can start to lose the flavor again. So I would say for a light roast, 6 weeks is maximum for optimum freshness. After that, it will still taste pleasant, but because we're losing the smell and the aroma, the flavor is a lot more muted. And for a medium roast, again, I would say a few weeks on that, up to 2 months, maybe 10 weeks maximum, will give you the optimum freshest flavor. Okay, so we've talked through the theory. Now let's jump on the Linear Mini and pull some espresso shots that are too fresh and stale to show you and help you spot the signs of whether your coffee is ready to drink or not. So when the coffee is too fresh, you will notice that it will have a lot of crema in the cup, and then it will also taste very fizzy on your tongue. It will have a level of astringency that's not pleasant and leaves your tongue feeling sticky afterwards. Finally, it will be extremely inconsistent. So from one shot to the next, you might notice it jumps in time between the two, and then you won't change anything on the grinder, but the coffee will just change on its own. And this is because it hasn't stabilized yet. So when the coffee is really stale, there's absolutely no fragrance when you dry the grounds. And then when the espresso pours, you have to go extremely fine. And then as you see, when the espresso reaches the correct height, there is very little crema on the top. And the body is really weak and watery as the coffee hasn't been able to dissolve anything. So when a coffee has been rested for about 7 to 10 days and the flavors start to come out, the aroma is really, really intense and it's really fruity, floral, chocolatey. And then we have a really nice crema, a really slow pour, and the body is medium or heavy body, and the final taste is balanced. So now that we've shown you some of the differences, flavors and taste and sight to look out for when you're trying to brew your coffee, let's wrap it up. So if you're a light roast lover, then we would recommend check the roast date on the back of the bag and wait at least 7 to 14 days after the roast date before you drink it. This will unlock much more complex flavor, a lot brighter fragrance, and a much more balanced taste in your cup. So if you find a bag of light roast that's over 2 months old, we would recommend do not drink it. It might have a really acidic flavor to it. The smell will be completely gone as it will be oxidated. And so when you taste it, you'll have the acidic flavor, the acidic taste, but none of those fruity or floral smells to give you any flavor. So we would recommend, if you do find this, just grind it up and throw it on your garden. Give your soil some nutrients. Now, if you're a medium roast drinker, we would say leave your coffee for 4 to 7 days before you drink it. It will degas a lot quicker, and also it will hold its flavor for longer. So if you find a bag that's 2 months old, it will still be good to drink. If it's pushing 3 months, then definitely don't consume it. Grind it and garden it. Finally, if you drink dark roast, then like we said before, it degasses much quicker. So 3 to 4 days after the roast date is perfectly fine to drink. And you should taste those flavors that you know and love. But equally, if you're drinking a dark roast at 3 months, it will still taste delicious. Anything past 4 to 5 months, we would say do not drink it as it's going to taste really, really rancid. The best option that we have for this is if you grind it up and put it in your fridge. Because we said earlier it absorbs the smells from within the fridge. If your fridge is starting to smell and you put a cup of ground roasted, dark roasted coffee inside of it, it will absorb the smells and leave your fridge smelling fresh. So we really hope that video was useful for you. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget, like and subscribe to our videos, and we'll see you next Friday for our next video.